Yes, Ashwini. By Dr. Avinash D'Souza. We as a department actually are so grateful for the overcoming responses that we received for this webinar. Before we go into the session to ask and request my HR, Dr. Avinash. A very good evening to all the participants. I, Alima Zahra, Head Department of Psychology, CTT College for Women, take this privilege to introduce person Dr. Avinash D'Souza, who is one of the leading consultant psychiatrists and psychotherapists in Mumbai. He is a consultant school psychiatrist. He has consulting rooms in Santa Cruz, West Mumbai. Research associate at the Department of Psychiatry, Lokmanya Tilak Municipal Medical College. He is the founder trustee in D'Souza Foundation, a trust that works in the area of mental health awareness across all sectors. Professor and secretary in International Institute of Organizational Psychological Medicine, an organization that works in the field of organizational medicine across 7 countries. He is an international faculty for UNESCO chair in bioethics, working in over 8 countries for the same. Works with 10 mainstream and special schools in Mumbai as a visiting school psychologist, as a visiting school psychiatrist, counselor, and school mentor. He is a visiting faculty and professor at various teacher training courses across Mumbai and at multiple and psychotherapy 650 publications in national and international journals and is the author of 10 books in the area of mental health. He is one of the few psychiatrists who is, in addition to a psychiatry degree, has a master in counseling and psychotherapy, an MPhil in applied and MBA in human resource development. He has been awarded a doctorate in clinical psychology from UK in the year 2011. We are very happy to have you, sir, and thank you so much for accepting our invitation. Participants are asked to leave their questions in the comment box, and your questions will be answered after the session. I now hand over the session to Dr. Avinash D'Souza. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here. And we today talking about personality disorders to y'all. And when I speak about personality disorders, my focus is primarily going to be more of perspective because there is a huge amount that can be said about personality disorders. In fact, every personality disorder can itself be a lecture. So I'm going to give you an overview of what personality disorders are. And it's very important to understand certain basic facets of personality. We go into the types and what these disorders are. The most important fact is when you look at what is a personality disorder. A personality disorder is something which is very inflexible and enduring. What we mean by that is it is something that is long lasting, not going to go very easily with treatment. It is not going to go very easily with medication. So it is a pattern of behavior that is ingrained within the individual. Apart from that, it starts around adolescence. So you can see the beginnings of that disorder coming up at that time. But of course, it becomes a full blown disorder only once the person crosses the age of 18. Very important thing is it is not in keeping with the individual's culture. So if you look at the nature, you will say this is not expected of him, but still we see this kind of a pattern of behavior seen in him. And it is usually lifelong, can be mellowed down, it can be handled, it can be sort of controlled, but it's a lifelong disorder. This is one of the reasons personality disorders in the older DSM-4 TR classification was on axis 2, because mental retardation, what we now call intellectual impairment, and personality disorders were the only 2 disorders which were lifelong disorders, which were put there. The multi-axial system, so personality disorders exist as a separate subset of disorders over here. What's also very important to know is personality disorders are very common. You see it both in males and females. Personality disorders may be seen more in males, certain may be seen more in females, but it is seen in a lot of the population. The disorder is that the patient does not feel he has a problem. He feels that fine, my thinking is fine, my behavior is fine, the way I am probably communicating with others is fine. It is others who have a problem with me. It is others who me. It is others who probably don't follow me. So very often the close caregivers and the close relatives of the person with personality disorder suffer. And then the personality disorder individual may function well. Sometimes you may see socio-occupational dysfunction also, but overall he continues to function when others suffer. Close relatives suffer as a result of his personality issues, and it becomes very difficult to make him understand that you have a problem and you need to. So it's something which is a little tough to handle. How common is personality disorders? Well, there have been a large number of surveys done. If you ask me, most epidemiological studies say that personality disorders may vary between 5 to 20% of the population. As high as 20%, it could be as low as 5%. So, a huge chunk of the population has personality disorders. Why is personality disorders so important? One, it's very common. Two, once you diagnose it, the treatment is something which has to be planned and long drawn out. So, a diagnosis of personality disorder, it's a label that you're giving him that this person is probably not going to change. We can reduce certain symptoms, we can remove certain, mellow down certain symptoms, but overall, he's not going to change. So, the key factor is going to be to keep him fine, to keep him okay. We need to just keep it. So, it's a diagnosis which is lifelong. So, diagnosis or labels being having personality disorders. Now, when you look at the classification of personality disorders, there is something which will strike you. The DSM has put personality disorders into three clusters: cluster A, cluster B, and cluster C. Cluster C is cluster A, is the odd and eccentric personality disorder group. Now, this is a very important personality disorder group because it's rare. We, trying to do something to outwit him. These people are also very litigious. For everything, they would want to go and lodge a police complaint. They would want to go and complain. They begin to feel that people do not want to be friendly with them. They begin to feel that people who are in, say, monetary status or societal status want to do something against them. They don't trust anyone, even in close relationships. If you even give them a gift, they would wonder, whether there is something wrong, whether there's something you want from them. That's why you're giving them a gift. What make up the rubric of paranoid personality disorder? And paranoid personality disorder is something which is seen probably a lot more common than we expect. And the reason why I'm saying this is because it's very, very common, but we never diagnose it. In fact, I always say to all my students that every housing society probably has at least one individual with paranoid personality disorder. And when you attend your general body meetings of societies, you will find there's somebody who's always ready to fight, who's always not trusting people, who's always going to court. And so you do see personality disorder there. But they don't feel they have a problem. They often feel others have a problem. They don't think anything is wrong with them at all. They feel that, yes, there are others to blame. So they are never bought for treatment. There is a scale known as the PPDQ, that is a paranoid personality disorder questionnaire, that may be used to assess these individuals. The treatment, well, you may prescribe a little bit of medication to mellow them down. But you need to have long-term psychotherapy with them. The main problem is they don't trust the therapist also. So they may not come very regularly for therapy. So as a result, they don't come for help and their entire family suffers. The second group of personality disorders under cluster A is personality disorder. The schizoid personality disorder is an individual who prefers to be alone. He has no interest in social relationships, interest in social bonding. He prefers to be on his own. It's not that he doesn't trust anyone, but he just prefers to be aloof. He may avoid parties, he may avoid engagements, he may avoid social gatherings. He just likes to be in his own world, doing his own thing, and he prefers to be left. A lot of these individuals very often are forced into being social, and they may find it very uncomfortable. They are forced into being what you say mix with others, and they may find it very uncomfortable. This is what we refer to as the rubric of schizoid personality disorder. Even in close relationships, they show a lack of love and affection. Even in close relationships, they show a lack of trust in others. They show a lack of expressivity when it comes to emotion. And why schizoid personality disorder is very, because it's very common in the first degree relatives of patients with schizophrenia. We have a schizoid personality disorder questionnaire. We also have a question tendency to go towards schizophrenia and schizoid personality disorder, which can be used to assess the. They are usually people who may be very brilliant. They are people who are doing very good work, maybe scientists. They may be people who prefer to be alone because they are researchers, and they belong to the category of what is called schizoid personality. The third group of disorder is what is called schizotypal disorder. Before we go there, very important schizoid personality is, do we treat it? The individual very often says, I like to be aloof. I don't want to mix with others. I prefer to be alone. And I'm very happy doing so. What is your problem? Why do you want me to change? Does giving an antidepressant, does giving an antipsychotic change the? No, it doesn't. You can speak to them in therapy and try and find out if there are issues. But overall, schizoid personality disorder patients do not change. We have a third group of disorders in the cluster A, which is referred to as schizotypal personality disorder. And schizotypal personality disorder is the main eccentric of the personality disorder group. They are a group that believe in oddities. They show eccentric behavior. They are a group that believes in black magic. They are a group that believes in astrology. They are a group that believes in numerology. They are a group that believes in religious fanatics. They believe that yes, something will happen. There will be a miracle. God will come. Something will rescue them. They believe everything will happen because the universe will conspire to make it happen. So they believe in these things. They at the same time also show certain features of schizoid personality disorder where they don't trust anyone. They prefer to be aloof. They show, but the key thing is their odd and magical beliefs. Their belief in their horoscope, very strong belief. Their belief in science, very strong belief. Again, schizotypal personality disorder is very common in first degree relatives of patients with schizophrenia. So most first degree relatives of patients with schizophrenia, if they don't have schizophrenia, they may show signs of schizoid personality disorder, schizotypal, or paranoid personality disorder. We have a schizotypy questionnaire. We also have a schizotypal personality disorder questionnaire, which can be used to assess these patients. Similarly to schizoid, unless the schizotypal patient has a problem, we don't really treat the patient with medication or therapy. The patient has to have a problem or has to be causing problems to others to enable us to treat them. We now move to a very fascinating group of personalities referred to as the cluster B group. And that's the far more common group that you see in clinical practice. Cluster B is a very, very important group because you will see it a lot in your outpatient and inpatient practice. One thing which you have to understand in personality disorders is irrespective of cluster, a lot of them may have comorbid psychiatric conditions. So you may have patients who have a personality disorder, but also may have major depression, but also may have anxiety, may also have schizophrenia. So they may have coexisting psychiatric disorders side by side. So just because you have a patient who is diagnosed as major depression, it doesn't mean that you don't look for personality disorder in them. Just because you have a patient who you've diagnosed as panic disorder or generalized anxiety disorder, it doesn't mean that you don't look for a personality disorder in them. You have to rule out personality issues in every patient that comes to you for treatment. We now move to cluster B. And in cluster B, the first disorder, which has always been the most fascinating for psychologists, has been the most fascinating for researchers, is the antisocial personality disorder. It's very important here that I make a slight distinction between the antisocial personality disorder and someone who we refer to as a psychopath. The two are slightly different, though they intertwine. The antisocial personality disorder overlaps. The psychopath shows more of a tendency to go towards criminality, whereas the antisocial personality disorder may show more of a tendency to have antisocial behavior and manipulation of close relationships. So the person with antisocial personality disorder is also known as, another term which is used for it is the sociopathic personality disorder. So sociopathic and antisocial is the same. And one of the things which is done here is that you see, when you see these individuals, They have a very nice superficial charm about them. So people feel very nice when they meet them. They feel, oh, this person is so nice. They will talk well, they impress others. They will also make others believe them fully so that people blindly trust them and they cheat the individual. They may lie, they may steal, they may gamble, they may also exert undue influence in relationships. They may be dominant, they may be violent towards the self and towards the partner. They may at times emotionally blackmail the partner that, okay, if you don't do this, I'm going to cut my wrist, I'm going to kill myself, I'm going to harm myself. Threaten to harm or mutilate the partner at times. They have reckless substance abuse. So they may engage in multiple drug taking. They may lie, cheat, steal, emotionally blackmail, and do anything to get the drug, like many patients with substance abuse do. They can say an emotional sob story and bring people to believe them. Also happens in antisocial personality is that there is a huge tendency to break the law. So they may do things which are antisocial. They may want to break the law. They may want to do things which are criminal. They may break rules. They may get violent and aggressive for no reason. They have a lack of remorse about what they do. They have no remorse about the acts. They also show a lack of affection at times in interpersonal relationships. They are very good in scheming criminal plans and activities. Some people with antisocial personality may not be violent. There is a scale for sociopathy on the MMPI, which the accessory scale, which can be used. There's also something known as the HARES, H-A-R-E, HARES psychopathy checklist, which is one of the scales which can be used for antisocial personality. The commonest comorbidity that we see in antisocial personality is substance abuse. Around 30 to 40% of patients with substance abuse show antisocial personality disorder. So it's a very common condition in practice. Treating it is very difficult. You need to have medical treatment to treat the emotional and behavioral and aggression aspect of it. Psychotherapy doesn't work very much with them because they are very manipulative. And they very often might even manipulate the therapist, pretend they are fine when they're actually not fine. They can tell anyone a sob story and get people on their side. They can be very manipulative and make you feel that you're guilty and that they're absolutely fine. So that's the story of personality. As we move from there, we move to a very, very important group in practice known as the borderline personality disorder. Important diagnosis in clinical practice because it's very commonly seen in psychotherapeutic and science. Probably it's the most common personality disorder seen in practice. Patients with borderline personality disorder have intense mood swings, attachments to people, and on one day that person may be the best person, and on one day that person may be the worst person. So they can raise you to a god pedestal and they can pull you from there down to the dumps. They also show aggression. A lot of them engage in self-harm and self-injurious behavior. They may have suicidal feelings, though they have a large number of manipulative suicide attempts, though some of them may even complete suicide. They also show emotionally unstable, stormy interpersonal. They are very, very emotional when it comes to their relationships. They have constant fights, aggressive, violent fights with their partner. They may emotionally blackmail the partner that you have to come now, otherwise, I'm going to probably cut my wrist, or I'm going to take poison, or I'm going to do something to myself. Do not develop attachments to everyone, but to a few people, which are very intense. They show a lot of caring towards animals compared to human beings. They can be very rude, they can be very curt, they can be very impulsive, they can be very aggressive. And when they do get aggressive and impulsive, they could engage in a lot of substance use. They could also engage in what is called sexual impulsivity. So a lot of one night sort of uh, sexual escapades can happen when they are in the mood of being impulsive. Most difficult personality disorder to treat because these patients have a huge chance of developing transference to their therapists. and some of them even develop a negative countertransference, which becomes even more difficult. The management of borderline personality disorder is symptom based. Based on the symptoms, they undergate them. There are different forms of therapy that may be used, of which dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, is one of the most common XP that work for borderline personality. We also have CBT that may be used. We also have transference focused psychotherapy, object relations based psychodynamic therapy that may be used. But long term intensive psychotherapy is the mainstay for treatment in borderline personality. It's also prudent that these patients remain in therapy for a long time. Many patients with borderline personality disorder may mellow down by the age of 40, 45, though the streak remains. It runs in families. Many of the people with borderline personality disorder may have family members who have the same disorder. Usually, borderline personality disorders tend to fall for with antisocial personality disorders, and both of them together are a very stormy, intense killer combination. It's also very essential to know that borderline personality disorder is far more common in women than in men. Similarly, antisocial personality disorder is far more common in men than in women. We now move on to the slightly benign cluster B group, which is the histrionic personality. Histrionic personality disorders are people who love to be the center of the attention. They love to get people looking at them. They will express emotions in a way no one expresses. It would be in excess of what is desired at the moment. There may be a superfluous, shallow show of emotions. A lot of makeup may be put. They may dress up in a way that people look at them. Low neck cleavage dresses, they may expose parts of people look at them. They may pretend to be the powerhouse in a party. They may pretend to be knowing everyone, a social gathering. They may act very close to you, though they hardly know you. They tend to feel very nice when they get attention, and they hate it when no one gives them attention. They may do anything to give attention. They also have emotions which may appear very childish. Sometimes you do see some forms of histrionic behavior when you behave in a manner which is on TikTok. A lot of people do that. But that is occasional histrionic behavior. You have some people who actually have histrionic personality disorder, and that they get attention and they want attention. They are rarely bought for treatment because they are manageable. They don't cause harm to others. It's only you have to tolerate them. So they are very rarely bought for treatment. The most dangerous but rare form of the cluster B personality, which will concern everyone, is the narcissistic personality disorder group. Not many of you may know, but today, 1st of June, starting in 2016, was labeled as Narcissistic Abuse Awareness Day. Why? Because narcissistic personality disorder patients very often abuse the people around them. The myth is that Narcissus, a man in ancient Greece, who looked at his reflection in a pond, fell in love with himself and died because he couldn't marry himself. Narcissistic individuals are those who think very highly of themselves, though it may not be true. They believe they belong to a superior league, they belong to superior status, they belong to a class of people different from others. They believe that they have special gifts. They believe all other forces have to bow down to them. They may ridicule others, make others feel low and good for nothing. They may be emotionally abusive. If things don't go that way, don't go their way, it could make them very upset. They always want to be in control of the situation and be controlled. Their emotions vacillate, and they can be sometimes very vociferous in their attacks. And the words they use are very harsh and tumultuous in relationships. They can also be at times very insulting. They can throw out people of their life back into their lives at will. Many people in offices have colleagues or bosses who are narcissistic and constantly get abused by them. People who live with a narcissistic personality disorder will know how tough it is to live with them. It's very, very essential that the patient with narcissistic personality disorder is brought for treatment. But he or she rarely comes for treatment leave. They're absolutely fine. And it's the others around them who have a problem. We have a narcissistic disorder first checklist that can be used to assess these people. For the histrionic personality disorder, we have a histrionicity subscale on the MMPI. We also have a histrionic personality disorder questionnaire which can be used. Borderline personality disorder, unfortunately, does not have a specific questionnaire, but borderline personality disorder has symptoms of nearly every psychiatric condition within it. We move to the cluster of personality disorders, which is referred to as cluster C. Cluster C is the avoidant and dependent group of personality disorders. The first is what is referred to as avoidant personality disorder. These are people who socially avoid places where there will be a lot of people. They are afraid that they will be judged in these situations. They are afraid of what others will think of them. They are afraid of whether they will be able to perform up to the optimum in these situations. They begin to feel that, okay, if I go there and don't do well, it will be highly shameful. So they are avoidant. They avoid social contact. Different from those who belong to schizoid personality disorder, because there they don't want social contact. Here, the individual wants social contact but avoids it due to the fear of being embarrassed, being judged, or failure to do things correctly in a social situation. You have an avoidant personality disorder questionnaire. A lot of patients with avoidant personality disorder show comorbidity with what is referred to as social anxiety disorder on axis 1. It's also very, very important that avoidant personality disorders get treated because it's a very treatable condition. A good therapy with little bit of medication works wonders in these patients. The second group in cluster C is what is referred to as a dependent personality. The dependent personality disorder group are a group of individuals who always want to lay their emotions on someone else's shoulder. They are people who are constantly looking for support, constantly looking for relief, and they'll come and shed tears and drop all their baggage on someone. The other person very often gets disturbed and depressed as a result, and they drop their baggage and move on. They cannot do things on their own. They need them. They need constant affirmation from others. They need constant support from others. They need constant encouragement from others, and that is what is referred to as sanity. A lot of these individuals have low self-esteem, and a lot of them show depression. The last group of patients in the cluster C group of disorders is what is referred to as the obsessive compulsive personality disorder. Another name for this is the anancastic personality disorder. It's a very important group because it's very common in practice. These are individuals who are very inflexible, rigid, and stubborn. They're also very perfectionistic in nature. They're very particular that things have to be done perfectly. They're very particular that deadlines have to be met. They're very particular that people should always adhere to rules and regulations. They do not tolerate any injustice. They do not tolerate any deviance from normal. They are very particular about cleanliness. They are also very particular that things should be arranged and kept spick and span and in order. And these are land up in trouble because others fail to meet these expectations. They expect everyone to meet these expectations, and it doesn't always happen. They also web of shame and guilt because they feel they have not been able to perform to their best potential because their obsessive compulsive traits haven't freedom. OCPD or obsessive compulsive personality disorder is very common in first degree patients with OCD. You may also see it in first degree relatives of patients with anxiety disorder. You have an OCPD questionnaire that can be used to patients. You have another group of personality disorders which is referred to as mixed personality disorder, wherein they do not meet the criteria of any of the disorders in cluster A, B, C, but they have some features of every disorder. But nevertheless, it is mentioned in the books, so I'm mentioning it. How does one treat personality disorders? It's very difficult. You need medical help for certain symptoms, but you need a lot of therapy. Sometimes the patient may be supportive, sometimes the patient may not be supportive. You need to be trained in how to treat these disorders. How do I assess these disorders? These disorders may be assessed using a personality disorder PDQ. You may also use the 16PF to look at personality traits. You may have the MMPI that you use to assess personality traits. You may also have various other questionnaires for personality that can be used. You have the Neo5, you have the Myers-Briggs questionnaire. These are all used for disorders. And then, of course, you have the questionnaires for individual treatment then and there. A lot of the times we see young girls with borderline tendencies at the age of 14, 15, 16, 17, and we know this is a borderline personality disorder in the making. It's very important that we start treatment early. We see boys with antisocial personality traits, schizoid traits, etc., at the age of 15, 16, and we know that this is a personality disorder in the making. What causes personality disorder? That's my presentation before we go into question answers. Is it genetics? To some extent. Is it environment? To a huge extent. Your personality is shaped by multiple factors. The people who you meet in your formative years and the kind of environment you've grown up in is paramount. Second, developmental psychopathology. As you grow, if there is psychopathology that happens, witnessing domestic violence, witnessing alcoholism in the parents, witnessing marital discord, being a victim of child or child sexual abuse, loss of a parent at an early age, divorce and separation in the family at an early age, witnessing a suicide, having a family member with mental illness, having a family member with substance abuse, harsh, punitive, authoritative parenting, bad, overzealous, laissez faire, that means callous and very casual parenting, sibling rivalry that is unresolved. All these factors play a role in the development of personality disorders. Harsh, punitive teachers, bad school environments, bullying at an early age, exposure to drugs and sexuality at an early age, all are markers for the development of personality disorder later in life. Do personality disorder patients come regularly for therapy? They do. But you have to make sure that they adhere to treatment. If they adhere to treatment, they will definitely show improvement. Once they trust the therapist, they do very well. It's that initial trust and rapport that has to be built, and then they will come very regularly for therapy. How common is personality disorders with other psychiatric conditions? Probably 20 to 30% of psychiatric patients have a personality disorder. Like I told you, 5 to 20% of the general population have a personality disorder. Diagnosing them and treating them is vital. Work it does. Psychodynamic, transference focused, object relation based, dialectical behavior therapy for borderline personality disorder, and solution focused disorders are therapies which have been used for these disorders very widely. One should choose the right school of therapy and start practicing it in patients with personality disorders. Remember, you can't cure a personality disorder, you can mellow it. You can reduce the symptoms totally, individual livable with. You can make the individual bearable, you can make the individual acceptable. That is our goal as a clinician. You can change personality 360 degrees, it is not possible, but you can help personality change so that others living around them find solace and they themselves find mental peace. Personality disorders is a vexing diagnosis. It's not a very easy diagnosis. Very difficult diagnosis and a very difficult condition to treat. You need a lot of persistence on the part of the therapist to treat. And when that persistence happens, you will see results. Never be afraid to diagnose personality disorder and never be. It's very important that you treat it when you detect it. Do not be afraid to reveal a diagnosed disorder to the patient. You may reveal. Be persistent, be rigorous, be holistic, be multi in your treatment, and you will find relief. Thank you. And if there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. So over to Alima and the department.
Hello, sir. Actually, information. We've taken some questions from the comment box. So I'll ask some questions that was posted by our participants. You can see
Someone with obsessions with regard to numerology may do things for a particular number of time. So OCD is a disorder. It's a psychiatric disorder which needs treatment. OCPD is a personality disorder. It may not always warrant treatment, but in extremes, yes, it would need help also. And OCPD and OCD are both genetically linked. They are familially linked. Family members of patients with OCD show OCPD, so it's very well known. Patients with OCPD may have OCD patients as their family members, so that's the link between the two.
Another question. They ask the difference between the sociopathy and psychopathy.
Well, I already mentioned that sociopathy is primarily where there's a lot of emotional manipulation and aggressiveness. There may be substance use, but psychopathy is where you have an entirely criminal angle. So you may have murder, you may have rape, you may have of a different kind related to it. So criminal tendencies are more common in people who we label as being psychopathic.
and there is no sir like asked us schizophrenia can be treated or not. Like completely curable. We've already answered this, but they've been asking so.
Schizophrenia is a disorder that can never be treated completely or cured. It depends on what is your concept of cure. So if your concept of cure is that symptoms have to be totally away, few symptoms do remain, what we refer to as being residual symptoms. You do have total reduction in symptoms that happen. The person lives a perfectly normal life. He may be maintained on medication, like blood pressure. Your blood pressure is upset. You continue to take blood pressure medication so that it doesn't rise. Similarly, schizophrenia symptoms resolve, but you continue to be on medication so that you don't get a relapse or a re-symptoms. So it's very important to understand it depends on your concept of cure. So it's definitely controllable to a very large extent and treatable.
There is one more. What can children do when they realize their parents' lifestyle kind of personality disorder? Getting will be hard, and staying with them again is a toxic relationship. So what can they do?
Well, I think if children come to know that their parent has a personality disorder, they may probably want to get advice. So they could visit a mental health professional, speak about it. And most importantly, if the parents don't want to come for treatment, they may at least learn how to deal with or manage the person, because that is something which is very important. And once they learn that, then I think they would be in a better position to handle their parents. Probably even convince them in the long run to come for treatment.
There is one more question. Blunting a feature of personality disorder.
Blanking.
Blunting.
I didn't hear you.
Emotional blunting.
Well, emotional blunting may be seen in most personality disorders. So you may see it in schizoid, you may see it in paranoid, you may see it in antisocial, you may see it in borderline. So yes, it's well known to be a part of personality disorders.
And there is one more. Can there be a comorbidity or two or more personality disorders?
There can be. We do have patients who show both antisocial and borderline personality traits. It's very well known. We see patients with borderline and histrionic personality disorder traits. Though, however, we always have a predominant personality disorder that surfaces. So we don't really diagnose two personality disorders. If we feel more than two or more exist, then it goes into the category of mixed personality disorder.
So we can include one of them, or does it not?
Yes, so usually we diagnose as the more predominant one, and you may always have histrionic features with the borderline personality. You may always have antisocial features with the borderline personality. So you have to see which disorder is more predominant.
So another thing is that you mentioned a lot of questionnaires as well. So participants have those questions. Where can we get these?
See, a lot of these are available online. If they're not available online, you can search for authors who have sort of worked and made these questionnaires. You can write to them via email, and if you're using it only for an educational or a research purpose, they would be more than happy to send it to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. These are the questions. So I hand over the session to Lavanya ma'am for official vote of thanks. Thank you so much.
I deem it a great honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks on the. Let me thank the Almighty God for making this event happening successfully. First and foremost, I would like to thank our guest speaker, Dr. Avinash D'Souza, for accepting our invitation. I believe each one of the students and beneficiaries who are there in the session have gained a lot of knowledge. Thank you, sir, for sharing your knowledge, as well as you have given an extraordinary clues of what are the questions to be used for a particular disorder to be diagnosed. So that is extraordinarily well. I enjoyed a lot in that. And then on behalf of the Department of Psychology, I thank our principal, Dr. Meenakshi, and Alima Zera, the HOD of Psychology Department, for organizing such an event. Then our Computer Science Department, Catherine ma'am, who have technically supported us, and my dear colleague Ashwini and Shanta of the Department of Psychology. And I would like to mention this, especially in this webinar, that we have get overwhelmed responses, more than 2,000 responses of registration for, and actively nearly 450 members have actively participated in the chat box. So this is an overwhelming responses. I really thank each and everyone who have opted for this. I think so. The name Dr. Avinash D'Souza have attracted a lot of people to attend the session as well. Thank you so much for it. And finally, I thank each and everyone who have participated here, because a lot of other college different parts of India have come up. So I really thank each and everyone. And finally, I leave a kind of inspirational quote by Martin Luther King, an individual as leave. A border concerns of all humanity. Once again, I thank you all for your enthusiastic and a kind of attention that given to this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank
It was a very informative session, sir. We had a okay, bye, Lavanya.
Bye.
Bye. Catherine, ma'am.